Well, as the war in Ukraine enters its third week, Russia is widening its attack on cities. Airstrikes hit targets in central and western Ukraine, far from the front lines of the fighting. Well, emergency services in central Ukraine say civilian targets in the city of Dnipro were hit for the first time since the war began. Russia says it destroyed 2 military airfields in the west. And the Kremlin has unilaterally now announced humanitarian corridors in places including Mariupol, Kharkiv, Sumy, and Cherniv. Ukraine says civilians are suffering, but so far, agreements to evacuate people have failed multiple times. And a metro station in the besieged city of Kharkiv has become a makeshift shelter for civilians trapped in the fighting. Russia says it will establish a humanitarian corridor in the city, Ukraine's second largest. Most of the 1.5 million residents have already fled Kharkiv, which has been under sustained bombardment. Well, Ukrainian authorities say that 40,000 people have now been evacuated from 5 different Ukrainian cities, but they say Russian troops continue to break ceasefires to allow more residents to flee. In Irpin, northwest of Kyiv, people have been fleeing amid heavy bombardment as Russian forces advance on the capital. Now, a brief pause in shelling has allowed more residents to escape. Our correspondent, Matthias Bullinger, is there.
Finally boarding a bus to safety, these refugees have just come out of the fighting zone northwest of Kyiv. Daria has been on the road for hours.
We left everything there and just fled. I don't know whether we will ever be able to come back.
Irpin, a suburb northwest of Kyiv, has been one of the worst hit places in this war. Ceasefires have been agreed and broken time and again. Just a few days ago, a family of 4 was killed near this bridge. They were shelled on their way out of the small town. This is one of the places that had been fought about for days. People have been sitting there, trapped, waiting for an opportunity to get out. Leaving behind what they could not carry with them, people have been fleeing in a hurry. Shelling can start again at any moment. Some have been walking for many kilometers before being able to cross over the bridge to reach one of the buses.
It's difficult and terrifying. The roads are destroyed. There's destroyed military equipment everywhere. Dead bodies lie around. We saw all this while walking. It's difficult for everybody, including old women. It's very frightening.
Many here have no idea where to go next. This kindergarten was closed after the war began. It's now hosting people who have fled the fighting.
Some arrive without even wearing slippers. Some come without a coat. There are some grandmothers who went out to fetch water and were evacuated because their lives were under threat.
Whole retirement homes have been evacuated. The refugees can rest here for a few days.
Everybody from our neighborhood left. A plane flew over us. Then it suddenly turned, dropped a bomb, and everything was on fire. Volunteers quickly evacuated us.
As evacuation of Irpin and other suburbs goes on, the kindergarten braces for more people to arrive in the coming days.
Well, for more, let's talk now to correspondent Alexandra von Namen. She is in Lviv, Ukraine, in the west. Alexandra, Russian forces have stepped up attacks across the country, including in the west.
Yes, and this is very worrying. I have to say that we had to seek shelter twice this morning with air raid siren going off for the first time about 5 o'clock in the morning. Nothing happened here, but there were several explosions in Lutsk, north of Lviv, a 2-hour drive, and actually a city that we visited just a few hours ago. The Russian Defense Ministry acknowledged that they attacked an airfield there, and they also attacked an airfield in Ivano-Frankivsk, southwest. And this is, of course, as I said, very worrying. And it's also showing that the Russian forces might be intensifying their efforts to slow the flow of weapons and resources to the front lines from across the western Ukraine.
Now humanitarian corridors have opened in fits and starts, but now there are worries they might be exploited.
Yes, it's increasingly difficult not to see it this way when we just consider that we have those announcements by the Russian forces that there are humanitarian corridors that can be used by civilians, and then we have those reports saying that the Russian forces are not stopping their attacks, or that they are even allegedly targeting the evacuation routes. And the Ukrainian president today said in his video address that the two words, the humanitarian catastrophe, are now synonyms for the Russian Federation, and the situation is getting worse and worse, and we have to say that there are now Western security or military experts who are saying that this is the main goal of the Russian forces now, is to spread chaos and terror across the country. So the Ukrainian forces are busy dealing with, helping civilians to get out, saving their lives, and not fending off the Russian offensive.
DW correspondent Alexander von Naumann reporting from the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. Let's take a look now at the other developments in the conflict. U.S. President Joe Biden has announced he's revoking Russia's favored trade status, meaning it can impose higher tariffs on Russian imports. He also said the U.S. would impose additional sanctions on individuals, including members of the Russian parliament, and ban exports of luxury goods. And a Soviet-era drone has crashed in the outskirts of the Croatian capital, Zagreb. Croatia's prime minister said it was Russian-manufactured and clearly came from Ukraine, though it's not known if it belongs to the Russian or Ukrainian army. Nobody was hurt in the incident. Russian President Vladimir Putin has advocated sending volunteers from abroad to fight against Ukrainian forces. During a meeting of his country's Security Council, Russia's defense minister said there are 16,000 volunteers in the Middle East ready to fight alongside Russian troops. U.S. officials said they have not yet seen any evidence of foreign fighters arriving in Ukraine.